If you're a Marxist, you've probably heard the phrase means of production. You're probably not listening, so I don't know who I'm talking to. This is Freedom and Prosperity Radio. Welcome back to this week's edition. The means of production has taken on a whole different meaning in the 21st century, and the gig economy is center square of it. And joining us to get into it a little bit, co-founder and policy director from the Better Cities Project is Patrick Tuohey. Patrick, welcome to Freedom and Prosperity Radio. How are you doing this weekend, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
So I'm baffled only to the point of then I realize they're politicians when I listen to folks like our Senator Mark Warner talking about regulating the gig economy, and I stop and I say, well, hold it. The gig economy is there because it wasn't regulated. Regulating it is just going to kill it. But it's almost a master's class in what crony capitalism has always looked like, doesn't it?
Well, certainly the people who have gotten to the top of the ladder have every interest in removing the rungs beneath them. So, yes, I think, we've had that, the people who build their industries want to protect them. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you, in the case of gig work and the gig economy and the growth in it we've seen over the last few years, I do feel bad for the industries that they are disrupting. For example, here in Missouri, in St. Louis, the taxi commission was particularly interested and successful for a while at blocking Uber and Lyft.
Sure.
And as much as I'm a fan of new technology and innovation, I completely understand it. These taxi companies around the country have been playing by the rules, are hugely capitalized, take on an awful lot of overhead and insurance, and have been playing the game for so long. And then all of a sudden, a new platform comes along without any of the overhead or regulatory schemes, and the people who are working in the space want to defend themselves. I totally understand that. Sure. I don't think it's enough of a reason for us to quash, new technologies, but Sure. I get it.
Well, and same goes for Airbnb, and I've been baffled here in our flagship area. We just had rules put in place by our local governments that say if you're going to, rent out as an Airbnb, you have to live on the property as well. You have to live in the building. It can't be a standalone, so you can't just rent out a house to somebody and things of that nature that just don't even make sense. But you get it because they charge, I think it's 8% room tax rate of the hotels in the area. So rather than the hotels saying, hey, they're not paying room tax rate, we shouldn't have to pay room tax rate, the hotels are saying, hold it, they're hotels, go punish them too. Yes. And it's almost Stockholm Syndrome.
I had a discussion a few years ago with a local teachers union representative, and I sat down and I wanted to discuss education policy and what she was dealing with. And, she said you advocate for private schools and charter schools, but those guys don't have to deal with all the regulation, the red tape, the hassles that we do. Mm-hmm. And I had exactly your reaction was, well, let me help you reduce those on your end rather than trying to shut down people who enjoy. Just an unfortunate instinct is that people say, and you look at little kids, right? A little kid doesn't have a toy, he sees someone else having a toy, he wants to punish that other kid. So I think that's a very human instinct, but we've got to rise above it because it is such a tremendous opportunity, not just for individuals, but for cities to inoculate themselves against the kind of economic ups and downs we've seen in the last few months.
Well, and as it grows bigger and bigger, it becomes truly crony capitalism, where the bigger and bigger your company is, the more you can keep your competitors from getting onto the playing field with you because you've made friends with those who write the regulations or those who appoint the people who write the regulations. And you wind up with things like General Motors too big to fail and just completely losing touch with the consumer end of their market because they're so busy with the regulatory end of it.
No, that's right. I would love to go through the books of some very large corporations and just see how much in revenue or tax incentive, how much money does their government relations department net for them compared to what their sales department does. Mm-hmm. Because I think you're exactly right. I think in big businesses have figured out if we have a team of lobbyists, we can turn a night profit on just the paperwork, not even our main product line.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've seen it, with some of the bigger companies. They can fold in the regulatory capture into their already existing. We went through this with online sales tax discussions, where a small person who's maybe making wrought iron furniture out of a shop in his home can't sell online because he has to collect, I think, what was it, somewhere along the lines of 108 different taxing authorities just in the United States if it was on his back to do that. But Amazon, because we just fold it in there. We got the accountants going anyway.
Yeah. No, it really is. It really is remarkable the speed with which kind of, the gig economy broadly defined has caught on, because people see the opportunity in flexibility, in freedom, working their own hours, and they love the independence. And so you talk about Mark Warner and others, California tried to regulate in a particular way ride-sharing companies. Mm-hmm. And so the instinct of people at the top, government, is, I think they mean well. I legitimately think they want to protect public safety, want to protect workers, but they are they are overreaching and threaten to destroy the industries that so many people enjoy.
Patrick, and I don't know if you were, there has been a discussion about how, cities management can grasp the gig economy and change, instead of one big half-empty bus, change their mass transit system into something more gig-oriented, where through an app you can say, hey, I need a ride to here, especially as our downtown areas become less and less the place we all go to work. Are there cities that are doing that, or is that still a hypothetical?
There are some cities that have tried to work with ride-sharing companies to provide paratransit, so individualized transit for handicapped people, special needs people, and that is promising. I think you're absolutely right. There is a tremendous opportunity for cities to work with a ride-sharing to meet all their transit needs. This is a foot in the door. A few places that will try it. They're in Massachusetts, the city tried it and had an awful lot of success and wants to expand it. But again, it takes people who are willing to look forward and not be bogged down by this is the way we did things in the past. Because the way we did things in the past was to protect industries like taxi cabs, like hotels, with all sorts of regulations. So I think you're right. There is some promise. If you spend too much time talking about government, it can make you cynical. But I'm hopeful that when they just see the cost savings, and the better public service, the idea that you don't have to take a public bus from, where it wants you to go to someplace else. You can actually have a car pick you up at your front door and take you right to your job. That's so much more efficient.
We're talking with Patrick Tuohey, co-founder and policy director at the Better Cities Project. I'm going to bring up a word we haven't brought up so far this program, which is a violation of FCC guidelines, COVID-19. We're supposed to go, once or twice every hour and say COVID-19. But the COVID-19 pandemic and the shutdowns, which we can argue about, but they have happened and they have spent a year with our kids home from school. Has that exposed a new place where the gig economy could have some impact, and that's in, I hazard to say, school choice, because people react badly to it, but gig economy brought to the educational world?
So, you make me laugh with, time, weather, and COVID-19.
You're right, exactly.
So I think there is a tremendous opportunity going forward, because people have seen, like you said, they've been exposed to some of the craziness in big government plans for things. And frankly, when a country is doing well, when a locality is doing well, you kind of hide all the problems in prosperity. But now that the lockdown has been challenging, I think people have seen, oh my gosh, there's a lot of regulation here that I wasn't aware of before, that I'm really not comfortable with. Sometimes people aren't allowed to operate a business out of their home of any kind.
Right.
Or people, again, are willing to put up with the minor inconveniences. But this pandemic has really focused people on the services they're receiving from government, whether it's school districts or city hall. And I think as we become more and more familiar with technology and the power of the smartphone, it wouldn't surprise me, as your question suggests, that a lot more people realize there is plenty of technology available for them to educate their own children and to rely less on big bureaucracies. Again, whether it be the city hall or the school district or the taxi cab company or the hotel chains. People are becoming more and more familiar with this. What our report suggests is that rather than cities react to each and every new platform, right? So they react to Airbnb, they react to Uber. I'm going to Massachusetts over the summer. I'm renting somebody's car for 2 weeks. It's just a private citizen who's got an extra car. It's through an app. So rather than react to all these things piecemeal, what a city needs to do is say, okay, we don't even know what technology platforms are going to be coming in the next 5-10 years, right? People are going to think of amazing things that no one's dreamt up yet. How can we adjust our regulatory scheme to be welcoming to all those new things? And I think part of it at the state and federal level is understanding that people are going to work differently in the future than they do now. I think at the city level, it's going to be recognizing that people have a right to their own property, whether it's a house or a car, and that they should respect that. Because, when we hit these economic problems, the gig economy, and to the degree that people are able to work side jobs or multiple jobs, protect not only themselves from economic uncertainty, but it can help protect a city from it.
Oh, yeah.
Because the economy can immediately shift, and that's really what we want. We want dynamic economies where people can see opportunities, take advantage of them, rather than kind of this static top-down model which has no flexibility at all.
That's a great point about it, too. The flexibility of it, you can change with the times. If 5G becomes the thing, then you can do this much more with it, or you can expand in 4G to something else, and you can democratize, I guess, to use a double point score word, the economic future. What is your hope in your research, Patrick, that is actually going to be the result? Is it going to be more of the old guys trying to cling to yesterday, or are there enough young people? Because even the young people in Congress, like AOC, seem to be clinging to the old things. The Green New Deal is really just a lot of old deal that doesn't grasp the new.
Well, I don't have an answer to that question, but I certainly think that time is on the side of innovators. Because, again, people are becoming more and more comfortable with this. Innovators are becoming more and more creative. We're thinking more and more about the things that we have that maybe other people can borrow where we can make money, things, such as that. And ultimately, something like a pandemic and economic lockdowns, cities understand that it's in their benefit to allow people to take care of themselves. There was a young woman in Florida, for example. At the beginning of the pandemic, Disney furloughed her and then laid her off. But she had always wanted to bake, so she started baking vegan cookies and treats from her home in Florida. And business has taken off. I corresponded with her by email, and part of the reason she was able to do this is because the state has rules that allow people to bake certain products without getting all the food handlers and health license requirements of a full-on restaurant, and she was able to start up her business even while she was filing all the paperwork with the state. So that kind of permissive regulatory opportunity allows people to pursue their own wishes rather than having to pay all the upfront costs first and then finding out if they like it. And so, again, that's just that young woman is not only starting a business and paying taxes, but because of her flexibility, she's not a drain on the state resources, right? She's generating income rather than taking income. And cities, especially coming out of this pandemic, really have to realize at what point are they do they have a boot on people's ingenuity.
Patrick Tuohey is with the Better Cities Project. You can read all this stuff. It's better-cities.org, better-cities.org. Patrick, it's been fascinating, and it's got to be the future. We've seen it in some industries, but I think it helps healthcare. We see it in some of the DPC, but in Virginia, we are so far behind the eight ball in this. We just had to pass a law that gave farmers permission to sell their produce at their farm. So That's the kind of state we're in right now here in the Commonwealth. But I appreciate you bringing all this to light, and hopefully it continues. Like you said, the pressure of an economy growing like this is eventually going to, conflagrate on its own.
Yeah, I think there's too much opportunity here, and even politicians are beginning to see that.
Thank you so much, sir, and you have a blessed weekend.
Take care.
And thank you on behalf of all of us here at the Virginia Institute for Public Policy. You can find us online at virginiainstitute.org. My name's Joe Thomas. Until next weekend, so long, and thanks for all the fish.